Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Liaquat Zaman. This is my channel Roots of Knowledge, and we are going through Hanafi Fiqh. We've reached up to the chapter of al-Waqf, which is endowments. So let's crack on. This a new chapter, guys. New chapter, inshallah. So Kitab al-Waqf. So first of all, we go through the language of it, and then we go through grammar, and then we explain the masail. So Waqf means an endowment. Right? So this is an endowment. Endowment. Okay, so this is the word endowment. Waqafa yaqifu means to stop as well. Waqif is the donor, the one who gives. So he is the donor. Okay, so this is the donor. And waqf, endowment, illa an yahkum, gives a judicial ruling. Al-hakim, the judge, or the government. Allaqa yu'alliqu, ta'liq, from bab taf'il, which means to tie or to condition. Mittu is from the mata yamutu, to die. And then you have milk, ownership. All these words you've done before. Sallama yusallimu is to hand over. Waliyan is a trustee. Okay, so trustee. Sahha, valid. Ikhtilaf, disagreement. Waqf al-musha' means commonly shared. Something that's shared. And then you have, again, because a lot of these words are things that I expect you guys to know from before, so I won't go into them. La yajuzu wa la yatimmu, tamma yatimmu means to become complete. And Abu Hanifa, hatta yaj'al akhiru li jihatin, it means a cause or a party. Tanqati means to cease. Abadan, forever. Sar al-fuqara, the poor people. Lam yusammihim, samma yusammi is to name. Aqar is estate. Yuhawwalu, yunqadu, this word came before, you remember. Yunqad means to something which can be moved, to move. And yuhawwal means can be transferred. قال أبو يوسف وقف الضيعة, it means land. ببقرها, cows. أكلتها, it means its workers. And jaza, or قال Muhammad, habs, it means to detain. Al-Qara' means the animals. And the silah means weapons. Okay, so let's have a look at what is being said over here. Right, so first of all, كتاب الوقف, this is the تركيب. هذا كتاب الوقف, لا يزول ملك الواقف, مضاف مضاف إليه, and this becomes the اسم of يزول. عن الوقف عند أبي حنيفة إلا أن يحكم به. الحاكم is the فاعل. يعلق أو يعلقه, علق يعلق في الفاعل بموتي, فيقول إذا مت فقد وقفت, فعل فاعل. داري is مفعول به. على كذا. قال أبو يوسف يزول الملك بمجرد القول. وقال محمد لا يزول الملك حتى يجعل أو يجعل حتى يجعل للوقف وليا. So وليا is the مفعول به. ويسلمه إليه. وإذا صح الوقف في الفاعل على اختلافهم. Now I'm sure you guys out there who are crazy تركيب artists are going to understand all this. خرج من ملك الواقف ولم يدخل and let me know why it's لم يدخل جزم, why. في ملك الموقوف عليه, new sentence. وقف المشاع جائز is the خبر عند أبي يوسف. وقال محمد لا يجوز ولا يتم الوقف, new sentence, عند أبي حنيفة ومحمد حتى يجعل آخره لجهة لا تنقطع أبدا. قال أبو يوسف إذا سمى أو سمي فيه جهة, نائب فاعل of سمية. تنقطع is the فاعل, فعل, and it's the فاعل, the جملة is the فاعل, the صفة, the جملة is the صفة of جهة. جازة is the جزاء. وصار بعدها للفقراء. وإن لم يسمهم إن لم يسمهم يصح وقف العقار ولا يجوز وقف ما ينقل ويحول اسم both مجهول. قال أبو يوسف إذا وقف ضيعة ببقرها وأكرتها وهم مبتدأ عبيده خبر جاز. وقال محمد يجوز حبس الكراع والسلاح. Okay, so what is this all about? Now, this is basically a practice that was introduced by the Prophet ﷺ in the early part of Islam, which was endowments, waqf. So let's say, for example, like you want to give charity, but you want this charity to be perpetual charity, right? So this charity, basically, what you can do is, let's say you have a piece of land. You can give this land as a waqf, okay? And therefore, any produce that is made out of that land, that will now go to a cause. So let's say it goes to the poor, or it goes to a mosque, or it goes to a madrasa, right? So you have invested in this land, you bought this land, you've given it to them as a waqf endowment. The land does not belong to them, but the produce of that land now is going to go to them now, so they can benefit from it. So some people might do it with libraries, they have endowment libraries or universities or anything for that matter. Right? So it's a very successful model of supporting the community. Right? In the past, they used to have hospitals that were run on waqf, so you could have free treatment because all the doctors, everything was paid for by the waqf system. Yeah, universities were for free of charge, and all sorts of other amenities they had that were paid for by the waqf system. So it's a really good thing. I mean, I would definitely encourage if anyone out there can start a waqf in their own community or get people, like-minded people, to start a waqf. You can run your masjid on it, and the masjid doesn't have to do regular collections. They can just run off that. It's a very good idea. So Kitab al-Waqf now. So La yazulu milk al-Waqf. Now, there is a difference of opinion with regards to, let's say there's a guy, for example, this is the guy. And this guy, he wants to give, let's say, this land as waqf. Yeah. So is he still the owner or not? So Abu Hanifa, Abu Yusuf, and Muhammad, they all differ on exactly what happens. Is he still the owner or not? So Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, he says he is still the owner, yes. Right? He's still the owner until the judge declares it, that this land is for whoever he gave it for, like the poor people, the orphans, or the university students, or he attaches it to death. So he says, if I die, this land is going to go to the orphans of this particular village. Right? So he says, those are the two cases. Otherwise, he's still the owner. Right? Imam Abu Yusuf, rahimahullah, he says, no, he says what happens is it will, soon as he says, basically, as soon as he says it, yeah, it will no longer be his. Yeah, so as soon as he says, so he says this land is for so and so, khalas, you don't have to wait for a judge, you don't have to wait for death, it's theirs now, right? You have lost ownership of it. And Imam Muhammad, he says that it will still be his until he actually, let me just, because why am I saying no? Let's put yes over here. Okay, so yes, but obviously there's a little detail in the yes. And Imam Muhammad says yes, but he's also got a bit of a detail in this. So he says yes, but as soon as he appoints a caretaker, a trustee, like a manager, and he hands over. Right, so trustee and hands over, khalas. Imam Muhammad says now he is no longer the owner now. Do you understand this? So when does Imam Abu Hanifa say he loses ownership? When the judge declares it or he attaches it to his death. When does Abu Yusuf say that he loses ownership? As soon as he says this is for waqf. When does Imam Muhammad say he loses ownership? Is when the trustee is appointed and the land is given over to him. All right, so Kitabul Waqf, this is the book of chapter of endowments. La yazulu milkul waqif. the ownership of the donor does not cease and waqf from the endowment, according to Inda Abi Hanifata, illa unless and يحكم به الحاكم, the judge, the government authorities pass a ruling. So the government says, finished, you are no longer the owner now. أو يعلقه بموته, or it's attached to his death. So judge decides or death, right? So just because he said the land is belonging to the university, he can take it back. That's the idea. فيقول إذا مت, so he says, for example, when I die, فقد وقفت داري, I have made this house, my house, an endowment upon such and such a cause. Yeah, كذا means here such and such a cause. وقال أبو يوسف, Imam Abu Yusuf says, يزول الملك, the ownership ceases بمجرد القول, by simply saying. So as long as he just said, he just says, finish خلاص. You don't have to wait for a judge or anything. وقال Muhammad said, لا يزول الملك, the ownership does not cease حتى يجعل, he makes for the waqf a waliyan, a trustee or an executor, ويسلمه إليه, and he hands it over to him. Yeah, so he hands it over to him. خلاص. Everyone understand the difference? All right. Now, next. All right. So, what happens after this then? So, once this is done, once the waqf has now been done, whether it's according to Abu Hanifa, with the judge saying it, or death, or whether it's Abu Yusuf by simply just saying it, or whether it's Imam Muhammad by saying it and then appointing a wali and then having it handed over. So what happens is now the item now leaves the ownership of the. Okay, actually, if I just do continue with this, it makes sense. Yeah, so it leaves the ownership now. So now let's do it in different color. So now it's gone from him and it's gone to, right, now it's gone from him, but it hasn't gone to the cause. It's like pending now. Put question mark there. Right, it's like pending. No one is considered to be the owner of it. Yeah, so this is basically what the issue is over here. No one is considered to be the owner of it. So just to summarize then, so the owner, the ex-owner, now he's become ex-owner, he's no longer the owner of it, in charge of it. So who is in charge of it? So it's in the hands of the trustee now. Trustee will be in charge of it, the wali, right? So the trustee is in charge of it, and no one is the owner. So it's like a mosque, no one owns it. All right, makes sense? So, وَإِذَا صَحَّ الْوَقْفُ, when the endowment is correct, عَلَى اختلافهم, according to their ikhtilaf, meaning according to the ikhtilaf of each one of them. Abu Hanifa says his and Abu Yusuf says his. خَرَجَ مِن مِلْكِ الْوَاقِفِ, it leaves the ownership of the waqif. Waqif is the donor. وَلَمْ يَدْخُلْ فِي مِلْكِ الْمَوْقُوفِ, and does not enter into the ownership of the mawquf. Remember, the mawquf is the people that are going to benefit from it. So who has it then? So it's going to be in the hands of the trustee. Trustee will have it, and they are the ones now legally responsible for it. Okay, right, let's move on to the next masla now. Now, the question is this: are you allowed to do waqf of shared items? So let's say, for example, there is a house, and this house is shared between two people. Right, so this guy and this guy. So let's call him A and let's call him B. So A decides now he wants to give his share. So his share, remember, he owns 50% of it, and he owns 50%. He wants to give his share to a waqf. So for example, like he wants to give it to a mosque or a madrasa. Right? So let's say, for example, he wants to give it to a mosque or a madrasa, whoever, poor people. So he's going to give it to them now, so as a waqf. So the question now is this: is that is permissible? Can someone who shared, remember we talked about shared gifts, that's not allowed, is it? What about this then? So he says وَوَقْفُ الْمُشَاعِ, so common shared item, is jaizun according to Abu Yusuf. وَقَالَ Muhammad, Muhammad says لَا يَجُوز. So this, Abu Yusuf says jaiz, permissible, and Muhammad says not allowed, you can't do it. Okay, next masala. Okay, next issue is this: is that, let's color. Right, the next issue is this: is that what is it given for? What must it be given for? So for example, let's say this is a cause. This is, we call it a jiha, right? A cause, a jiha. What causes can it be given for? So the rule is this: according to Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Muhammad, it has to be given for a cause that is everlasting. Yeah, so everlasting. Right? It has to last forever. So it can't be something you give it to. I want to give it to this little orphan. You can't give it to a little orphan because he's gonna die, and that's it. So it has to be given for an everlasting cause. So an everlasting cause can be, for example, let's say it's for a mosque, or it can be for a madrasa, or it can be for a hospital. It doesn't matter if people die, people that come after them will still be benefiting from it and utilizing it. Yeah, so it has to be an everlasting one. Generally, it has to be given for poor, but rich people can benefit from it as well. Right? So generally, it's something which is given for a poor. However, Imam Abu Yusuf, he says you're allowed to give it for something which is non-everlasting, means something which is gonna end, something that ends. You can give it for something that ends, but once that thing ends, it will then be given to the poor, right? And then it just carry on with the poor after that. So the poor will be benefiting from it. So that's the difference between the two. What's the difference? Imam Abu Hanif and Muhammad say you have to intend, like let's say I want to give my house as waqf. So I have to say this is going to be waqf for all the poor people of my city. Yeah. And then it carries on. Imam Yusuf says that's fine, you can do that, but you can also say I want this house to go waqf to Khalid. Khalid's a poor person. And once Khalid dies, now it's going to be taken off his family and now given to the general poor people now. So poor people will benefit. Once they use it, other people will come and they'll use it and so forth. Make sense? Okay, so وَلَا يَتِمُّ الْوَقْفُ Waqf will not be considered complete in the Abi Hanifata and Muhammad حتى until يجعل he makes it the end of it لجهة for a direction or a cause لا تنقطع أبدا, which never ceases. Like never ceases means, of course, day of judgment is going to come and it's going to cease, but overall it's not going to cease. وقال أبو يوسف, Imam Abu Yusuf said إذا سمى فيه or سمي فيه, when it's mentioned in it جهة, a cause تنقطع, which ceases, like I said, like it ends with Khalid. Jaza is jaiz, but then after him, Sara ba'daha, after that cause, it will then go to the poor people. And then the poor people, it will just like a continuously used by the poor people after that. وَإِن لَمْ يُسَمِّهِمْ, even if he doesn't explicitly say that to the authorities, it will just go for him. Okay, that masla done. Next masla now. Okay, next masala. What's the next masala? Right, next one is, so you're allowed to do something which is estate. Waqf of estate is jaiz, okay? Everyone agrees with that. But what about waqf of something which is movable? Yeah. So movable. Can I give my car? Can I give my car as waqf? Can I give my library of books as waqf? Can I give my mobile phone as waqf? Can I give, my clothes as waqf? So this is to do with the movable items. Okay, so can you do waqf of movable items? So technically, no. Technically, with Hanafis, you can't do waqf of movable items. So, like for example, books or car, clothes, these kind of things, right? Things that can be moved around, books, etc., food, these kinds you can't do it. Okay, so وَيَصِحُّ وَقْفُ الْعَقَارِ, the waqf of a estate is jaiz. وَلَا يَجُوزُ وَقْفُ, and it's not permissible to do waqf مَا يُنْقَلُ وَيُحَوْلُ, that which is movable. Right now, okay, so what about, let's say, for example, tools on a field? So Imam Abu Yusuf says tools on a field, so tools can be given with the land, So if you're going to do waqf of land, but then you're going to give tools with it as well, that's okay. That's what Abu Yusuf says. That is considered to be permissible. Yeah. And Imam Muhammad actually says you are allowed to restrict or do like a waqf of animals and weapons. So isn't this going against what we said earlier on, that you can't give things that are transferable? Yeah. So over here, didn't we say we can't give So this basically is what we call an istihsan masala. This is like an exemption to the rule. This is fi sabilillah. So fi sabilillah meaning if it's going for soldiers, are you going to take it in the path of Allah? That's what it's allowed for. So animals, like for example, someone wants to give their horse or camel for the path of Allah, and weapons, etc., then that's considered to be permissible. But this is for fi sabilillah only. So fi sabilillah is like an exemption to the movable items. Otherwise, everything else movable, you can't give it. Make sense? Okay, so وقال Abu Yusuf إذا وقف ضيعة, when a person makes waqf of a piece of land, ببقرها, with its cows, and with أكرتها, أكر meaning hum abiduhu, his slaves. So he's got slaves and he's going to give those slaves who are going to work on the land, the workers on the land. Jaza is jais. وقال Muhammad, and Muhammad says يجوز حبس, it's permissible to restrict the animals and the weapons fi sabilillah. So let's say there's an army that's going to go for battle, and you say, you know, I've got these horses, or I've got these weapons, I'm not going to be using them, so you guys can take them as waqf. That is allowed, and that's the exemption to the rule. Okay, so khalas, that's it. All right, so what did we cover today? So we covered today, what is waqf? It's an endowment. And what is the ikhtilaf in when the owner ceases to be the owner anymore? So Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah says when the judge or death has been attached to it. Abu Yusuf says when he says the statement waqf. And Imam Muhammad says when a trustee and it's handed over, has been appointed. Okay, number two, second masala, is what happens to ownership then? Who does it go to? So it doesn't go to anyone. The trustee is simply in charge. And the ex-owner is no longer the owner, and the cause is no longer the owner. Okay, next masala. Are you allowed to do waqf of something that's already shared between two or more people? Abu Yusuf says yes, Muhammad says no. Okay, and what about this idea that what kind of recipient or what kind of cause can you give a waqf for? So Imam Abu Hanifa and Muhammad say it has to be something which is everlasting. Abu Yusuf says it doesn't have to be everlasting, but once that non-everlasting thing, cause, stops, then it's going to be transferred to the poor automatically. Are you allowed to do waqf of estate? Yes. Are you allowed to do waqf of movable items? No. And what about tools and things like that? So Imam Muhammad says it's allowed for battle. So for battle, these can be given. Now, here are some questions for you guys. Questions. According to Abu Hanifa, does ownership transfer from the waqif, the donor, upon declaring a waqf, or is a legal verdict hukum required? What's the answer? Yes. How does this differ from opinion of Abu Yusuf and Muhammad? Abu Yusuf says, soon as he says it, and Muhammad says, soon as he appoints a trustee and gives it to him. Number two, what conditions is mentioned or conditions mentioned for a waqf to be valid if the waqf is made for a specific cause? What happens if the designated jiha becomes non-existent or interrupted? So we said Abu Hanifa, Abu Yusuf say it has to be everlasting, but Abu Yusuf says it can be interrupted, and if it's interrupted, then it goes to the poor after that. Is it valid, according to Abu Yusuf and Muhammad, to make a waqf an item that is commonly used and not owned by the waqif? Yes or no? Let me know in the comments. What is the ruling on waqf becoming binding without specifying an uninterrupted party? According to whom is it invalid unless such a jiha is named? So we answered that one already, and you can put in the comments. What do the scholars say about making a waqf movable, manqulat, clothes and slaves? How does the opinion of Abu Yusuf differ from Muhammad in this regard? Okay, so put in the comments below. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you for watching this video, guys. May Allah bless all of you people for supporting my channel. If any of you guys want to become patrons on a monthly basis, support my channel. It means a lot to me. It's going to help my work a lot. Please consider becoming one. On the screen, you'll see the Patreon symbol, and you can check the description or even contact me as well. Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. I'll see you guys next time. Assalamu alaikum.